You know what time it is. Woo! Get into it. Get into it. Yes! We're back. Hi, lovelies. Hi. You know what time it is. You know what time it is. You know what time it is. Woo! It's time for Story Time with Chris. As I always say, you don't have to watch these videos when they go live. You're more than welcome to watch them. In your downtime, nap time, max, relax, and chillaxing time, in between time, mean time, scheme time, summertime, break time, any time that you want to hear a highly animated voice bring you wonderful stories of magic, fantasy, science fiction, adventure, and many, many more in between. And I have different headphones on today, and the reception is so clear, so I'm trying not to shout. Except, of course, the intro that was just happening. So, we are almost done with the remarkable journey of Prince Jed. Jed has now given away all of the treasures with which he was going to give to Huan Ming. And he has been reunited with Mafu, his right-hand man and servant, and Mosha, the honorable robber. And they've nursed him back to health. They were able to break the Kangoo and release him from his imprisonment. And come to find out, the king of Tiang, Prince Jen's father, has passed on. He became gravely ill after Jen had left to go on his journey to Huan Ming's kingdom of Tianquo. And unfortunately, he has passed on. And now he is no longer Prince Jen, he is King Jen. And now he has to return to the castle of Tiang, the kingdom of Tiang, and be able to take over the throne. But we're going to see how that pans out. Alright. And no, I don't own the music you're listening to in the background. Just brought to you by... Actually, who is this? Who is this brought to you by? Hold on. I was almost about to use Adventures in Odyssey. Hi, I'm Chris. Welcome and enjoy another adventure of Adventure in Odyssey. No, okay, so I've talked about this before. This is only for the 90s kids. Does anybody remember Adventures in Odyssey, which was a Christian radio program with all these different adventures about this wonderful town called Odyssey and this malt shop slash library and hangout spot called Wits End? And it was just a cool thing that I loved growing up with, and it will always stick with me. And if anybody remembers that, please comment below. Yes, for those who remember Adventures in Odyssey, it was a good time. It was just a fun series to listen to, and it was fully dramatized, and there were some episodes that got really suspenseful with some of the more dramatic plots that got a bit serious, but I have not heard anything since about it. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, it probably is still going on, I'm just not aware, but I really love and miss that show and learned a lot of really great life lessons from those characters on that show. Now, let's go ahead and get started. Chapter 28. Merchants journey south. Celestial Palace in Chang'an. Various welcomes. 3 merchants left Nangpei at dawn. The innkeeper felt sorry to see them go. They had paid handsomely for services required. One had been ill but was now recovered, and all had set off south on business. What their business was, the innkeeper neither knew nor cared. He did wonder idly and briefly why these gentlemen travel without servants or carriage driver. The stubby, paunchy one took the reins himself and seemed quite skilled at it. The innkeeper did not inquire why he performed a task more befitting a groom or household servant. The long-legged one struck the innkeeper as a trifle eccentric, ever muttering about his nose and ears, but wealthy guests were entitled to be eccentric. As for the youngest, he said little, appearing withdrawn, the result, no doubt, of illness. A junior colleague, the innkeeper assumed, not having been informed that the young man happened to be the new king of Tiang. This secrecy had been Jen's choice, as he told Mafu and Mosha the last thing in the world he wanted was to proclaim his identity. Without proof, Jed said, whenever I tell anybody who I am, either they take me for a madman or I end up in trouble. Can you see us walking into an official's yamen and trying to convince him he'd throw us all in prison or worse? Mafu disagreed. The palace has to know you're alive and on your way back. Otherwise, the ministers and counselors will be flapping around making a mess of things. No telling what those fools will be up to. We'll send word privately. Jin finally consented. At their first halt after leaving Nong Pe, he wrote a message in accordance with Mafu's suggestion. Mafu picked out a sturdy, reliable-looking fellow among the servants at the village inn, brought him a horse, handed him a purse of money, and ordered him to ride for Chang'an, as far as he could, and as fast as he could. He'll be there well ahead of us, Mafu said. Since he can't read or write, he has no idea what he's carrying and won't gossip about it along the way. He'll do as he's told. He won't make off with the horse and money because he knows he'll be paid again doubly once he reaches the palace. Excellent plan, put in Mosha. Greed will keep him honest. Jen was satisfied with that, and not satisfied at all. Do I return as a king? No, I return as a failure, Jen said in bitter self-reproach. My father depended on me, but I turned away from my journey. The gifts he entrusted to me are lost, every one. I've even lost Voyaging Moon. You'll find your flute, girl, Mafu insisted. You have royal power now. Once home, you can order searches in every corner of Tiang. Notify every official in every yamen. She's bound to turn up somewhere sooner or later. We might even come across her on the way, added Mosha. The nose, the ear, the eye are devoted to your service. In short, I'll keep on the lookout for her. Jen had to admit that Mafu was right. As king, Jen commanded more resources than before. The sooner in Chiang, the sooner he could use them. In all haste to reach the capital, Jen urged Mafu to continue on the roads past nightfall and to set off again before daybreak. With fresh horses wherever they could be found, sometimes they galloped long stretches without a halt, one taking the reins while the other two slept. Near the end of their longest day, the weary travelers came in sight of the Lotus Bridge in the city's outskirts. Our messenger got there safely. Mafu pulled up the horses. We're expected. Look, they've sent an escort to welcome us. Out with you, Divine Majesty, and submit to the formal greetings. Mosha had left from the carriage and was eagerly beckoning to the escort by the time Jen climbed down. With Mafu beside him, Jen stood hands in sleeves while the warriors galloped toward them. Are you Jen Shaoye? The troop captain reined up to his mount. The young Lord Prince? Before Jen could answer, Mafu stepped forward. No, he is not, Mafu indignantly retorted. What discourtesy is this? Dismount, Captain. Pay respect properly. He is no longer young Lord Prince, but his Divine Majesty Jen. The troop captain seemed familiar. Jen had seen him before among the palace guard, Li Kuang's warriors. The memory teased and eluded him. There is no such ruler, the officer replied. Jen suddenly recalled the cavern, the bandits. The men had been one of the yellow scarves. Jen cried a warning to Mafu and Moksha. Too late. The troop had surrounded them. There is only one king of Tiang. The warrior drew his sword. King Natha. The prisoners were to be granted indulgence by the grace and generosity of Natha, king of Tiang. The troop captain informed them of this as they were herded under guard into the celestial palace down corridors usually bustling with officials, but now empty and echoing. Indulgence, muttering Mafu. Grace and generosity. We're prisoners no matter how you look at it. He's doing us the favor of keeping us alive, I suppose, Jen said. He could have killed us out of hand. Then, Mafu remarked, be sure he's saving us for something equally nasty. The nose of suspicion failed, Mosha groaned. I should have smelled a trap. Oh my. Bon appetit, children. Salmon is good for you, and it's good for your digestion. It has lots of good proteins necessary for the body. Natha would have caught us sooner or later, Jen consoled the dismayed robber. As we're alive, we may still have a chance. They halted at a heavy door, where two warriors stood guard. The troop captain unbolted it and gestured for them to enter. The portal swung shut behind them. The lamplight showed chambers sparsely furnished. The room held yet another occupant. Young lord, why did you not tell me who you were? An old woman hobbled toward Jen, who stared a moment before recognizing her. Plum Blossom? You brought my fragrance of orchard to life. Plum Blossom would have kowtowed, but Jen took her hands into his own. The child is well, then?
Your gift restored her,
Plum Blossom said,
and she flew away with it. Even so, I must believe she lives, happy wherever she may be.
The old woman's words puzzled him as much as her presence here. Jen asked no further explanation. His eyes had gone to the slender figure who had stepped from the adjoining chamber. He cried out as Voyaging Moon ran to him. His months in the Kengu, his helpless searching, his failed journey all vanished from his mind. Mafu's eyes popped. Mosha grinned all over his face.
The heart of devotion swells, exclaimed the mad robber. The eye of tender affection sheds a tear of joy. But if your sweetheart's in the palace, your majesty, it occurs to me she's a captive as much as we are.
I couldn't warn you,
Voyaging Moon said.
Natha told you were on your way. The message you sent fell into his hands. He and his warriors had already captured the palace. They attacked Chiang-an when your father died. Plum Blossom and I had no chance to escape. Natha had secret dealings with some of the officials, so I heard,
Voyaging Moon went on.
They practically invited him in. As for you, they thought they were well rid of you. They knew you were supposed to learn how Huan Ming governed his kingdom and do likewise in Tiang. A king who knew how to rule was the last thing they wanted,
which is very, very ironic, children. It's very ironic to what's happening now in this country. There are certain individuals that I'm not going to name because we're not here to talk politics, we're talking literature, but for the juxtaposition of this book and current political tides right now, there are certain individuals who would rather have somebody who is incompetent at the job, who can easily be puppeteered to, work the country from the shadows while working other people's agendas, than somebody who actually took the time to be qualified for the job and doesn't need other people naysaying and piggybacking from behind the scenes. We are a democracy. We have checks and balances. We have a Congress and a Senate, people and individuals who are paid and voted to make sure that we are doing what is necessary to appease the rights and liberties of not just the some, but the all, okay? And so when you have individuals in this particular instance who are being paid behind closed doors to support the agendas of very vengeful, very angry, very nasty people, it tends to bite you in the behind a lot harder than what you expect. Karma is a very powerful indicator, and I would highly caution that if you're going to do something underhanded and nasty, be sneaky about it, be thorough, and if not, what's done in the dark comes to the light, okay? And we're going to find out as we continue to read the story what happens when people don't do what they're supposed to do. So interesting. Very interesting.
They were afraid you'd be wise enough to kick them all out. Natha promised them.
This makes no difference now, Jen broke in. We have to find a way out. We're together. That's all that matters. I lost you once. I won't lose you again. For the rest, for the palace, for Chiang, for the kingdom of Tiang, I don't care.
You have to care, Voyaging Moon said. You're king, not Natha. You know what he is, a brute and a killer. He forced you to give up the sword. Will you let him take your people too?
Can I stop him? Jen returned. Any more than I stopped him from taking Huan Ming's gift?
I don't know, Voyaging Moon said. But you better start thinking about it. And about your father. He never lost hope that you'd come back. He counted on you to rule wisely in his place. I told him I knew you would. He was happy with that. And at peace.
You saw my father? You were here then?
I was with him when he died, Voyaging Moon said quietly. I told him about our betrothal. He was glad. He gave us his blessing. Yes, I came to Chiang-an, he went on.
Forgive my mispronunciation. I'm so sorry.
I had been looking everywhere for you. Finally, I knew I couldn't find you on my own. I needed more help. I thought your father could give in. And so he'd have done, had there been more time.
I'm surprised they let you into the palace, Mafu put in. You'd had no idea how hard it is to gain an audience.
Not for Lady Shadow behind a screen, Voyaging Moon grinned immodestly. Her reputation traveled as fast as she did. The famous mysterious flute girl with news of the young Lord Prince, they fell all over themselves opening the gates. And you, dearest Jen,
Voyaging Moon continued, turning to him.
I played for you wherever I went, hoping you'd hear. No. Now I wish I hadn't, because all it did was draw Notha's attention. He knew of Lady Shadow behind a screen. To find her in the palace? What an unsuspecting prize for him. All the more since he remembered me from the cavern. He remembered me all too well. Pig. He really gloated over finding me again. He's been keeping me under lock and key. Plum Blossom, too.
Voyaging Moan put a hand on the old woman's arm.
Poor soul. I saw her limping along the road in the midst of a snowstorm. I took her into my carriage. She told me about her granddaughter and the young stranger who gave her a kite. So I knew at least you hadn't drowned in the low river. I meant to do Plum Blossom a service, taking her with me to Chiang-an to get help from your father. Now she's in the same pickle as we are.
Notha has no grievance against her, Jen said. Why should he do her any harm? For myself, that's a different matter. He'll have to get rid of me. I'm surprised he hasn't done it already. I'm surprised he even let me see you. He's not one to do favors.
That, said Voyaging Moon, was my idea. I struck a bargain with him. He agreed to give me a few hours with you. Royally generous. He thinks himself quite the king, but he's still the same arrogant ruffian. Worse, he's gone a little mad on top of everything else. I've heard he talks to his sword. He struts and preens enough to turn your stomach. He wanted an ornament for the palace, something to flaunt and boast about it. In this case, Lady Shadow, behind a screen. That's my part of the bargain, Voyaging Moon said. I told him I'd marry him.
Noble sacrifice, terrible bargain. Has Jen found Voyaging Moon only to lose her along with his life? What hope at all for him? Can a desperate situation turn worse? It can, and does. To learn how, go on to the next chapter. And that is where we're going to end for tonight. And I think I'm going to be a bit generous and read the last 3 chapters on Wednesday so we can get this story finished and start the next one, which I will show you now. Hold on one second. Oh, goodness. Oh, it pays to be old. Okay. Alright. So, if you've been watching this channel for the 4.5 years I've been doing this, I've read A.A. Milne's Winnie the Pooh and The House on Pooh Corner, the 2 original books of the stories of Winnie the Pooh. So there was a wonderful person who took the time to revive these stories with all new stories with the same style of illustrations as the original stories. And I have in my possession Return to the 100-Acre Wood, which plays as a beautifully tributed sequel to those original stories by A.A. Milne. And it is... I can't wait to show you all these pictures. It is beautiful. And they dedicated this book, of course, to Ernest Shepard, who is the original illustrator of the original stories, and A.A. Milne. And yes, that is the next book we'll be reading for Storytime on Monday and Wednesday. I have another set of stories planned, but I need to get all of them in order before I start. And that, and I'm going to just say this now, is Susan Cooper's The Dark is Rising sequence. I have read all 5 books. It's one of my favorite series of all time. And I've actually talked about one of my favorite books in that series and a beautiful moment from that story. And I can't wait to read it to you. I can't wait. I really can't. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. And let's see. Let's go down the list. So there's... there's The Dark is Rising, which is the first book. And then there's Oversea and Understone. And then there's The Green Witch, and there's The Grey King, and then there's The Silver on the Tree. Those are the 5 books in the Dark is Rising sequence. What is The Dark is Rising? It's actually a very, well, it was made in the 70s, but you could place this story in any time period. It's not time period specific with the main plot. So it's told through two sets of characters. There is Will Stanton, and then there's this trio of siblings that work together to defeat the Dark. Now, who is the Dark? The Dark is agents of shadow and mystery and time travelers and magic who use the darkness to destroy and manipulate the hearts of people and the world. Whereas those who are the old ones, or those who champion the light, they're those who either can banish or seal or vanquish the dark. Because here's the thing. Darkness itself is not inherently evil, children. It is people who use darkness in evil ways that make it so. Because without darkness, we would not have the night, and without light, we would not have the day. And so I'm really excited to read that series to you. Like I said, it'll be after we read Return to the 100-Acre Wood. I'm super excited. And I'm going to go ahead and leave you with that. I love you all so very much. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye, lovelies. Bye.